The massive war room floated in space above the planet Zephyria. Inside the metal walls, alien commanders from 12 different worlds gathered around a glowing table. The table showed a spinning image of Earth with all its continents marked in red. Commander Vextar stood at the head of the table. His blue skin shimmered under the bright lights and his forearms moved as he talked. He was the leader of the Altarian race and had conquered 47 planets in his long career. Today he looked at Earth like it was his next easy meal. Other aliens in the room came from many different worlds. There was Lieutenant Cormesh, who had green scales like a giant lizard. His yellow eyes never blinked as he studied the Earth data. Captain Zildok had purple skin thick as armor and muscles bigger than tree trunks. General Naxoth floated in the air because he had no legs, just tentacles that wiggled constantly. Vextar pointed one of his arms at the spinning Earth. "Look, at this pathetic little planet," he said with a laugh that sounded like metal scraping. "These humans still fight with bullets and metal weapons while we have plasma cannons that can melt mountains." The hologram zoomed in to show different parts of Earth. Vextar used his finger to point at various military bases. "See these tiny bases they call strong," he continued. "Their biggest weapons are metal tubes that shoot small rocks. We could destroy their entire military with just one of our smallest ships." Cormesh flicked his long tongue out and tasted the air. His race always did this when they were excited about hunting. "So these humans are so weak they need machines just to fly," he said. "On my home world, even our children can leap between mountaintops. These Earth creatures cannot survive without artificial heating in their cold regions." The room filled with alien laughter. Some of the creatures made sounds like grinding gears. Others hissed like angry snakes. A few clicked their mandibles together. Rapidly, Zildok slammed his massive fist on the table, making the whole room shake. "I have fought the crystal warriors of Andromeda," he growled. "I have battled the fire demons of the 7th dimension. These soft pink humans will break like twigs under our boots." General Naxoth floated closer to the Earth display. His tentacles reached out to touch the hologram. The planet spun slowly as he examined each continent. "What is this frozen wasteland here?" he asked, pointing to the Korean peninsula. "It says their mountain special forces train in this ice-covered land." The aliens looked at the snowy mountains and cold forests of Korea. The temperature readings showed numbers that made several of them shiver despite their advanced armor. Vextar laughed even harder. "They put their best soldiers in a freezer," he said. "How can creatures who cannot even control their own body temperature hope to fight us? Our environmental suits protect us from temperatures far worse than this frozen mud." Cormesh studied the tactical reports about Korean military units. "According to our intelligence, these mountain special forces have 30 soldiers," he read aloud. 30 warriors against our invasion fleet of 10,000. This will be over before lunchtime. The alien commanders spent the next hour planning their attack. They looked at satellite images of Korean mountains and military bases. Everything seemed so simple and easy. The humans had small weapons, primitive vehicles, and bases made of concrete instead of energy shields. Captain Zildok pointed at several mountain bases on the display. "We will land here, here, and here," he said, marking 3 locations. "Our drop. Ships will deploy 500 soldiers at each site. The humans will surrender immediately when they see our superior technology." But Vextar had a different idea. He wanted to make the conquest more entertaining for his troops. "No," he declared, "we will attack their strongest position first. These mountain special forces in the frozen wasteland. When we crush their best warriors, the rest of the planet will lose hope and surrender without fighting." The alien officers nodded in agreement. This strategy would save time and ammunition. Why fight the entire planet when breaking their spirit would make them give up? Lieutenant Cormesh brought up detailed maps of the Korean mountains. The area was covered in snow year-round with temperatures far below freezing. There were deep valleys, steep cliffs, and dense forests. "Perfect terrain for hiding," Cormesh noted. "But our thermal sensors will detect any heat signatures from these cold-blooded mammals." General Naxoth studied the weather patterns above Korea. "There are frequent blizzards and storms," he observed. "Our ships might have difficulty with visibility, but their primitive eyes will be completely useless in such conditions." The planning continued for hours. The aliens discussed landing zones, troop deployments, and weapon assignments. They calculated how long it would take to defeat the Korean forces. Most estimates ranged from 2 to 6 hours. Vextar made the final decision. Deploy the 4th Assault Fleet to this Korean peninsula, he commanded. Land at coordinates shown on tactical display Alpha 7. Eliminate all resistance from these mountain special forces. Once they are defeated, broadcast the victory to the entire planet. The humans will understand that resistance is futile. The alien officers saluted their commander and left the war room to prepare their troops. Ships throughout the fleet received orders to move toward Earth. Weapons were charged. Environmental. Suits were tested. Soldiers sharpened their claws and checked their plasma rifles. None of them noticed the small human observation satellite hidden in an asteroid field nearby. The satellite had been recording everything for the past 3 hours. Every word, every plan, every tactical detail was being transmitted to Earth through quantum communication channels. Deep in the Korean mountains. Major Kim Tae received the intelligence report on his handheld device. He sat in a snow-covered bunker, built into the side of a mountain cliff. The bunker was invisible from outside, looking like natural rock and ice. Kim Tae was 40 years old with weathered hands and sharp eyes. He had spent 15 years training in these mountains, learning every cave, every trail, every hiding spot. Around him, 30 elite soldiers prepared their equipment with quiet efficiency. The aliens think we are weak primitives, Kim Tae said to his men. They believe cold weather and snow will defeat us before they even arrive. He looked around at his soldiers who had trained in these conditions since childhood. They do not understand that this frozen wasteland is our home. These mountains are our fortress. This snow and ice are our allies. Sergeant Parkdale cleaned his rifle while listening to his commander. Sir, what are our orders? He asked quietly. Kim Tae stood up and walked to a window that looked out over the snowy peaks. Let them come, he said calmly. Let them land their ships and march their soldiers into our domain. They will learn that technology means nothing when you do not understand your enemy or your battlefield. The Korean soldiers finished their preparations in silence. They had been waiting for this moment their entire military careers. Soon, the aliens would discover what it meant to fight the mountain special forces on their own ground. The alien dropships screamed through Earth's atmosphere like falling meteors. Their heat shields glowed red hot as they descended toward the Korean peninsula. Inside each ship, 50 Galactic Federation soldiers checked their weapons and prepared for what they thought would be an easy victory. Captain Zildok commanded the lead ship as it approached the landing zone. Through the viewing port, he could see endless white mountains covered in snow and ice. The temperature readings on his display showed -30 degrees. He laughed at how these pathetic humans could survive in such conditions. The first wave of ships landed in a valley between 2 mountain ranges. The location seemed perfect for establishing a base camp. It was flat, open ground with good visibility in all directions. The aliens had no idea they had just walked into a carefully prepared trap. 100 alien soldiers emerged from their ships in perfect formation. Their advanced armor made them look like metal giants walking across the snow. Each soldier carried plasma rifles that could melt through steel. Their helmets displayed thermal imaging and motion detection systems. Lieutenant Kormesh was the first to remove his helmet. The cold air hit his scaled face like a physical blow, but his environmental suit kept his body warm. Around him, his soldiers began setting up defensive positions and communication equipment. This is almost too easy, Kormesh said into his radio. I see no signs of human resistance anywhere. Our thermal scanners show no heat signatures except for small animals hiding in the rocks. From his position 300 meters away on a snow-covered ridge, Corporal Lee Min watched the aliens through his rifle scope. He had been lying motionless in the snow for 6 hours waiting for this moment. His white winter camouflage made him invisible against the mountain landscape. Lee Min had grown up in these mountains. His father had been a hunter who taught him to track deer through deep snow without making a sound. His mother had been a mountain climber who showed him how to survive in freezing weather with minimal equipment. Now at age 28, he was one of the best snipers in the Korean military. The aliens moved around their landing zone like they owned the place. They had no idea that 30 pairs of human eyes were watching their every move from hidden positions. Throughout the surrounding mountains, Major Kim Tae spoke quietly into his throat microphone. All units report when ready, he whispered. His voice was so soft that someone standing next to him would barely hear it, but his radio system transmitted clearly to every member of his team. Team Alpha ready, came the reply from Sergeant Park Dal, who was positioned on the eastern ridge. Team Beta ready reported. Specialist Choi Bo from his hiding spot in a cluster of rocks. Team Charlie ready confirmed Lieutenant Kim Soo from her sniper nest in a tall tree. One by one, all 6 teams reported their readiness. Each team consisted of 5 highly trained soldiers, positioned at different points around the alien landing zone. They had the invaders completely surrounded without the aliens knowing it. Kim Tae looked through his own scope at the alien commander, who was pointing at different locations and giving orders. The alien seemed very confident and relaxed. That confidence was about to disappear forever. Execute. Phase 1. Kim Tae whispered into his radio. What happened next took exactly 12 seconds but would be remembered by the surviving aliens for the rest of their lives. From 6 different positions around the valley, Korean snipers fired simultaneously. Each shot was perfectly aimed and timed. 6 alien soldiers dropped to the ground before their companions even heard the first gunshot. The aliens had expected to hear loud explosive sounds from primitive human weapons. Instead, they heard nothing at all. The Korean rifles had been modified with advanced silencers that eliminated almost all sound. Private Nilesh, a young Centaurian scout, was examining some ice formations when Lee Min's bullet found its target. The alien fell forward into the snow without making a sound. His squad mates continued their work for several seconds before someone noticed he was down. Captain Zildok spun around looking for the source of the attack. His helmet displays showed no enemy positions, no heat signatures, no movement at all. It was as if the shots had come from ghosts. Contact, shouted Lieutenant Kormesh into his radio. We are under attack from unknown positions. Request immediate air support. But there would be no air support. Unknown to the ground forces, their communication satellites had been jammed by devices the Koreans had built using captured alien technology from previous encounters. The alien soldiers began firing their plasma rifles randomly into the surrounding mountains. Bright energy beams melted snow and scorched rocks but hit nothing human. The Koreans were too well hidden and too disciplined to give away their positions. Specialist Choi Bo had been waiting for this moment. He pressed a small detonator hidden in his glove. High above the valley, tons of snow and ice that had been carefully prepared began to shift and slide. The rumbling started as a low sound like distant thunder. Then it grew louder and louder until the entire valley shook. A massive avalanche thundered down the mountainside directly toward the alien ships. Half of the landing craft disappeared under thousands of tons of snow and ice. The aliens who had been standing near their ships ran frantically trying to reach higher ground. Many of them did not make it. Zildok watched in horror as his perfectly planned invasion turned into a nightmare. In less than 5 minutes, he had lost 30 soldiers and half his equipment. The enemy was invisible, and the environment itself seemed to be fighting against them. Another wave of sniper fire dropped 6 more aliens. The shots came from completely different positions than before. The humans were moving after each attack, making it impossible to locate them. Kormesh tried to organize his remaining soldiers into defensive positions, but it was useless. Every time they thought they had found cover, another avalanche would start, or more silent bullets would find their targets. From his command position, Kim Tae watched the alien formation fall apart. These invaders had superior technology and training, but they had never fought in conditions like this. They did not understand that in the mountains the weather and terrain were deadlier than any weapon. The surviving aliens huddled behind the wreckage of their ships. Their advanced armor and weapons meant nothing when they could not see their enemy. The snow continued to fall, making visibility even worse. Team leaders prepare for Phase 2. Kim Tae whispered into his radio. The real hunt was just beginning. The aliens had come to his mountains expecting an easy victory. Instead, they had walked into a trap designed by men who knew every rock, every tree, every wind pattern in this frozen wilderness. As night began to fall, the temperature dropped even further. The aliens' environmental suits would keep them alive, but their morale was already broken. They had never faced an enemy like this before. An enemy that could become one with the very landscape itself. In the growing darkness, the mountain special forces began to move closer to their prey. The surviving aliens huddled inside their last remaining dropship like scared animals. Outside, the temperature had dropped to -40 degrees, and the blizzard showed no signs of stopping. Ice crystals formed on the inside of their helmets. As their environmental systems struggled to keep up, Captain Zildvik counted his remaining soldiers. 12. Out of 100 elite troops, only 12 were still alive. The others lay buried under snow or scattered across the frozen battlefield. Their advanced armor and weapons had been useless against an enemy that fought like the mountain itself. "We need to contact the fleet," Zildvik said to his communications officer. "Tell them to begin orbital bombardment immediately. Level this entire mountain range if necessary. But when the officer tried to activate their long-range transmitter, nothing happened. The display screens flickered once, then went completely dark. Emergency lighting came on, casting strange shadows inside the cramped ship. "Sir, all systems are failing," reported the officer. "Main power is down. Life support is running on backup batteries. We have maybe 6 hours before complete system failure." High above them on a rocky cliff, Specialist Yoon Ha watched through binoculars as the alien ship went dark. She smiled with satisfaction as her electromagnetic pulse device completed its work. The EMP generator had been built using salvaged alien components and Korean engineering. It was crude but effective. Yoon Ha had studied electrical engineering before joining the military. She understood how alien technology worked better than most humans. More importantly, she knew how to break it. The EMP device had been hidden in the wreckage of an alien fighter that crashed during the first battle. When the surviving aliens gathered around their last ship, they had no idea they were sitting next to a bomb designed to destroy all their electronics. "Target neutralized," Yoon Ha reported into her radio. "Enemy ship is dead in the water. Moving to secondary position." Inside the disabled ship, the aliens began to realize how desperate their situation had become. Without power, their environmental suits would stop working within hours. The outside temperature was already cold enough to kill them in minutes. Lieutenant Kormesh tried to manually activate their distress beacon, but even the backup systems had been fried by the electromagnetic pulse. They were completely cut off from their fleet with no way to call for help. "Maybe we can repair the main communications array," suggested one of the younger soldiers. "If we work together, we might be able to get a signal through to the command ship." Zildok shook his head grimly. "Even if we could fix the radio, what would we tell them? That a handful of primitive humans destroyed an entire invasion force? That we were defeated by creatures who fight with bullets and explosives." The alien captain looked out through a small window at the swirling snow. Somewhere out there in the freezing darkness, the human soldiers were moving closer. He could feel them like predators circling wounded prey. Captain Jang Woo led the final assault team through underground tunnels that connected to the valley floor. His soldiers moved in complete silence, carrying explosive charges and cutting tools. They had spent the last 2 hours positioning themselves directly beneath the alien position. Jang Woo was an expert in demolitions and underground warfare. He had served in special operations for 8 years and had never failed a mission. Tonight would be his greatest challenge and his most important victory. The tunnel system had been created decades earlier as part of a defensive network designed to stop foreign invasions. Korean military engineers had spent years digging these passages and reinforcing them with steel and concrete. Now they would serve their original purpose. Through his earpiece, Jang Woo received reports from his team leaders. Alpha team in position at grid reference 77. Beta team ready at grid reference 84. Charlie team standing by at grid reference 92. The explosive charges had been placed at carefully calculated points around the valley floor. When detonated simultaneously, they would trigger a controlled collapse that would bury the entire alien position under tons of rock and ice. "All teams report ready," Jang Woo whispered into his radio. "Alpha team ready," came the first reply. "Beta team ready," confirmed the second. "Charlie team ready," reported the third. Jang Woo looked at his watch. In 60 seconds, the mountain would reclaim this valley and erase all traces of the alien invasion. He began the countdown. 60 seconds, he announced to all teams. The Korean soldiers made final adjustments to their equipment and moved to safe positions. They had rehearsed this operation dozens of times in training, but never with real explosives and real enemies. 30 seconds. Jiang Wu continued. Inside the alien ship, Captain Zildok felt a strange vibration through the floor. It was subtle at first, like a distant earthquake. Then it grew stronger and more rhythmic. Do you feel that? He asked his soldiers. Before anyone could answer, the mountain exploded around them. 10,000 pounds of military-grade explosives detonated simultaneously at 12 different points around the valley. The sound was like thunder and lightning happening at the same time. The ground shook so violently that trees on distant ridges swayed back and forth. The alien dropship disappeared instantly under an avalanche of rock ice and debris. The carefully engineered collapse buried everything in the valley under 30 feet of rubble. Any survivors would be trapped underground with no air, no heat, and no hope of rescue. From his observation position, Major Kim Tae watched the destruction through night vision binoculars. The valley that had been crawling with alien soldiers just moments before was now a smooth white field of snow and stone. Phase 3 complete, he reported to his team leaders. All enemy ground forces eliminated. Beginning preparations for Phase 4. But Kim Tae knew the real battle was just starting. His intelligence network had detected massive energy signatures from the alien fleet in orbit. The remaining ships were powering up their weapons for a full-scale bombardment of the entire mountain region. The aliens planned to destroy everything within a 100-mile radius, to make sure no human survived to tell the story of their defeat. It was a desperate move by commanders who could not accept that their superior technology had been beaten by primitive mountain fighters. Corporal Nam Gil, the team's communication specialist, had been monitoring alien transmissions for the past hour. "Sir, I am picking up chatter from the orbital fleet," he reported. "They are moving bombardment ships into position above our location. How long do we have?" Kim Tae asked. "Based on their engine signatures and current trajectory, I estimate 6 hours, until they reach optimal firing position," Nam Gil replied. Kim Tae nodded slowly. 6 hours was exactly what he needed for the most audacious plan of his military career. Instead of hiding from the alien bombardment, he was going to capture one of their capital ships. "Listen carefully," he told his assembled soldiers. "We are not going to run from those ships. We are not going to hide in bunkers waiting for them to destroy our mountains. We are going to take the fight directly to them." The Korean soldiers looked at their commander with expressions of surprise and excitement. They had followed Kim Tae through impossible situations before, but this seemed beyond even his capabilities. "How do we fight spaceships, sir?" asked Sergeant Park Dal. Kim Tae pointed toward the wreckage scattered across the battlefield. "With their own technology," he replied. "We are going to turn their weapons against them and show them what Korean engineering can accomplish when necessity demands innovation." The hunt was about to move from the mountains to the stars themselves. Commander Vextar stared at his command display in disbelief. The numbers on the screen could not be real. 60% casualties in the first hour, half of his dropships destroyed. No confirmed kills of human targets. It was impossible. The blue-skinned alien leader had conquered dozens of worlds, but he had never seen anything like this. His forces were some of the best-trained soldiers in the galaxy. They had energy shields, plasma weapons, and advanced sensors. How could primitive humans cause such damage? "Sir, we are receiving distress calls from Ground Team Alpha," reported his communications officer. "They say the humans are fighting like ghosts. Our soldiers cannot locate the enemy positions." Vextar activated his holographic display and tried to contact Captain Zildok directly. The signal was weak and filled with static, but finally connected. "Captain, report your status immediately," he demanded. The reply came through, broken and desperate. "Commander, we are pinned down behind our crashed ships. The enemy has us surrounded, but we cannot see them. They are using the snow and ice to hide their movements. Our thermal sensors are useless in these freezing conditions." Down on the surface, Captain Zildok crouched behind a pile of twisted metal that used to be a dropship. Around him, 20 surviving aliens tried to stay warm as the temperature continued to drop. Night was falling and the blizzard was getting stronger. The aliens had been trained to fight in many different environments, but never anything like this. On most worlds, battles happened in open areas where their superior technology gave them clear advantages. Here in the Korean mountains, technology seemed to mean nothing. Sergeant Park Dal led his 5-man team through a network of ice caves that honeycombed the interior of the mountain. The Koreans had mapped every tunnel during years of training exercises. They could move from one side of the battlefield to the other without ever appearing on the surface. The caves were pitch black and freezing cold, but the Korean soldiers moved through them like they were walking through their own homes. They had night vision goggles that worked perfectly in the absolute darkness. More importantly, they had memorized every turn, every branch, every dead end in the cave system. Behind them, a squad of Saurian soldiers stumbled through the tunnels trying to follow their trail. The reptilian aliens had excellent hearing and could track movement by sound. But in the echoing caves, every footstep seemed to come from 3 different directions at once. The Saurians' environmental suits kept them warm, but the suits were designed for open combat, not cave exploration. Their bulky armor scraped against the narrow tunnel walls, making noise that announced their position to anyone listening. Corporal Vash, the leader of the alien squad, stopped his team and activated his helmet lights. The beams cut through the darkness, revealing ice-covered walls that seemed to go on forever. There were footprints in the frost, but they led in multiple directions. Which way do we go? He asked his soldiers. The human tracks split into 3 different tunnels. Before anyone could answer, Park Dal and his team struck from above. The Koreans had climbed into cracks in the ceiling and waited for the perfect moment. They dropped down behind the aliens like hunting spiders attacking their prey. The fight lasted less than 30 seconds. The aliens were caught completely by surprise in cramped conditions where their plasma rifles were almost useless. The Koreans used combat knives and close-quarters techniques that had been perfected over centuries of mountain warfare. When it was over, 5 more alien soldiers were dead, and their equipment was being collected by the Korean team. Park Dal spoke quietly into his radio. Cave assault successful. Moving to secondary position. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Kim Soo had positioned herself on a rocky outcrop that gave her a perfect view of the main alien encampment. Through her sniper scope, she counted 40 surviving enemies trying to establish defensive positions in the valley below. The aliens had chosen the worst possible location for their last stand. They were in low ground surrounded by elevated positions that were perfect for snipers. Worse yet, they were clustered together, making easy targets instead of spreading out. Kim Soo had been the best marksman in her military academy class. She had won competitions against soldiers from 12 different countries. But this was not a competition. This was war, and the enemies were invaders who had come to destroy her homeland. She adjusted her scope for wind speed, temperature, and distance. At this range, she could hit a target the size of a coin. The alien soldiers were much bigger than coins. Her first shot took out the aliens' communications array with a single bullet. Sparks flew, and electrical components scattered across the snow. The invaders were now cut off from their command ship in orbit. The second shot eliminated an alien officer who was trying to organize a defensive perimeter. The creature dropped immediately and his soldiers began to panic. They started firing randomly into the mountains again, wasting ammunition and revealing their positions. From 6 different sniper nests around the valley, Kim Tai's soldiers began systematic elimination of the invasion force. Each shot was carefully aimed and perfectly timed. The aliens had nowhere to hide and no way to fight back effectively. Captain Zilduk realized his situation was hopeless. His soldiers were being picked off one by one by an enemy they could not see or touch. Their advanced weapons were useless against opponents who attacked from extreme range, then disappeared before retaliation was possible. He tried to call for orbital bombardment, but his communications were jammed. He tried to organize a breakout, but every route was covered by snipers. His men were trapped in a killing zone with no escape. The snow continued to fall, covering the bodies of his fallen soldiers. Soon there would be no trace that the mighty Galactic Federation had ever set foot on this frozen world. Major Kim Tae observed the battle from his command position high in the mountains. The aliens were brave fighters, but they were completely out of their element. They had never faced an enemy that could use the environment as a weapon. The Koreans had grown up in these mountains. They knew how to read the weather patterns, how to move silently through deep snow, how to survive in conditions that would kill most other humans. These skills had been passed down through generations of mountain dwellers. As the alien resistance collapsed, Kim Tae began planning the next phase of his operation. The surviving invaders would soon be forced to surrender or freeze to death. But this was only the beginning. There were more enemy ships in orbit, and they would certainly send reinforcements. The mountain Special Forces had won the first battle, but the war was just starting. Soon, it would be time to take the fight directly to the aliens in their own ships. Kim Tae smiled grimly as he watched the last few enemy soldiers huddle around their failing equipment. The hunters had become the hunted, and the mountain had claimed another victory over foreign invaders. The Korean soldiers worked through the night like busy ants collecting pieces of alien technology from across the frozen battlefield. Every weapon, every piece of armor, every electronic component was gathered and brought to their hidden mountain base. Major Kim Tae had transformed an old mining facility into a makeshift engineering workshop. The cave system provided perfect cover from orbital observation, while giving his team space to work on their impossible project. Corporal Nam Gil sat surrounded by alien communication equipment, trying to decode their transmission protocols. Wires and circuit boards covered every surface of his work area. His fingers moved quickly across alien keyboards that had been designed for creatures with different hands. Sir, I think I have breakthrough, Nam Gil called out excitedly. I can access their communication network. Not only can we listen to their conversations, but I can send false signals that appear to come from their own ships. Kim Tae hurried over to examine Nam Gil's work. The young soldier had somehow connected 3 different alien communication devices using Korean military radios as interface components. It looked like something built by a mad scientist, but the display screen showed it was working. What kind of information are you getting? Kim Tae asked. Nam Gil adjusted several controls and alien voices filled the workshop. The translation software built into their equipment converted the words into Korean in real time. Admiral Kristan is commanding the orbital fleet, Nam Gil reported. They have 6 capital ships and 20 fighter escorts. The Admiral is planning to begin bombardment in 4 hours to eliminate all evidence of their defeat. Kim Tae smiled grimly. Perfect, he said. Send a message to the Admiral. Make it appear to come from Captain Zildok. Tell him that one of our ships escaped the surface. With critical intelligence about human military capabilities. Nam Gil looked confused. But Sir Captain Zildok is dead. His ship was buried under 30 feet of rock. Exactly, Kim Tae replied. The Admiral does not know that. He will think one of his commanders survived and has important information. What Admiral would not want to recover such valuable intelligence. While Nam Gil worked on the deception, Lieutenant BAE-1 struggled with an even more difficult task. She was trying to learn how to pilot a captured alien fighter that had crashed during the first battle. The alien cockpit had been designed for creatures with 4 arms and completely different body proportions than humans. BA-1 had to use both hands and both feet just to reach all the necessary controls. The flight computer was programmed in an alien language with symbols that looked like twisted metal sculptures. Worse yet, the control responses were completely different from human aircraft. What should make the ship go up made it roll sideways instead. I think I am starting to understand their system, BAE-1 reported to Kim Tae. Their flight patterns are actually simpler than our jets, once you learn their logic. The main problem is that everything is backwards from what we expect. Kim Tae watched as BAE-1 made the alien fighter hover 3 feet above the workshop floor. The ship wobbled uncertainly but stayed airborne. It was crude flying, but it would be good enough for their plan. How long until you can take it into combat conditions? Kim Tae asked. Give me 2 more hours for practice and I will be ready. BAE-1 replied confidently. The hardest part was figuring out their weapons systems. Now that I know how they work, I can make this ship dance. Across the workshop, Specialist Choi Bo was working on the most dangerous part of their plan. He was converting salvaged alien weapons into a coordinated defense system that could threaten capital ships. The alien plasma cannons were incredibly powerful. but they had been designed for ground combat against infantry targets. Choibo was modifying them to work as anti-spacecraft weapons by linking multiple units together and boosting their power output. It was extremely risky work. One mistake could cause the weapons to explode with enough force to level the entire mountain. But Choibo had studied alien technology for months, and he understood their energy systems better than anyone. These plasma cannons use crystalline power cores, Choibo explained to Kim Tae. If I can synchronize 12 units and fire them simultaneously, the combined energy beam should be powerful enough to disrupt a capital ship's shields. Will it destroy the ship? Kim Tae asked. No, Sir Choibo replied honestly, but it will overload their navigation systems and force them to land for repairs. That is when we can capture them. As the hours passed, Kim Tae's impossible plan began to take shape. The alien fighter was ready for flight. The communication deception was in place. The modified weapon systems were positioned on mountain peaks throughout the region. Everything depended on perfect timing and a little bit of luck. Admiral Kreeston floated in his command chair aboard the massive cruiser Devastator. His tentacles writhed with anticipation as he prepared to obliterate the Korean mountains and restore his fleet's honor. The other alien commanders had been questioning his leadership after the disaster on the surface. Some had suggested that perhaps the humans were not as primitive as originally believed. Such talk was dangerous and had to be stopped immediately. Admiral Sir, his communication officer announced. We are receiving a transmission from Captain Zildvik. On the surface, Kreeston activated his personal communication screen and saw what appeared to be an official fleet signal. Put him through immediately, he ordered. The message that followed was exactly what the Admiral wanted to hear. Captain Zildok reported that he had escaped the human attack with critical intelligence about their military capabilities. He was requesting immediate pickup by a capital ship. Excellent, Kreeston declared. Deploy the Devastator to retrieve Captain Zildok and his intelligence data. This information will be valuable for future conquests. The massive cruiser began descending through Earth's atmosphere toward the Korean peninsula. Its shields glowed bright blue as it entered the planet's weather systems. On the bridge, alien officers prepared to recover their surviving commander. None of them realized they were flying directly into the most elaborate trap in military history. Lieutenant Bae-1 sat in the cockpit of the stolen alien fighter as it rose through the storm clouds above the mountains. To anyone watching from orbit, it would appear that a Federation scout ship was escaping from the surface with important intelligence. The hardest part was making her flight path look authentic. She had to fly like a damaged ship trying to escape, while actually leading the enemy cruiser into the perfect position for Kim Tae's ambush. Come on, she whispered to herself as she monitored the orbital communications. Take the bait. Far above her, the Devastator adjusted course to intercept the small fighter. Admiral Kreeston was so eager to recover the intelligence data that he brought his ship down below the cloud layer where Kim Tae's weapons could reach. All units prepare for synchronized attack. Kim Tae commanded from his mountain position. Around the peaks, 12 modified plasma cannons swiveled toward their target. Korean soldiers made final adjustments to power levels and targeting systems. The trap was set. In 60 seconds, the hunt would move from the mountains to the stars. Target acquired, Specialist Choibo reported, as the massive alien cruiser descended through the clouds. Range 4,000 meters and closing. All weapon systems showing green. Status. Kim Tae watched through his binoculars as the kilometer-long warship approached their position. The Devastator was one of the most powerful vessels in the Galactic Federation fleet. Its armor could withstand direct hits from battleship. Cannons and its weapons could destroy entire cities. But it had one weakness that the aliens had never considered. The ship's navigation systems were designed to work in the vacuum of space, not in the chaotic electromagnetic environment of a planetary atmosphere during a blizzard. Fire. Kim Tae commanded. 12 plasma cannons, fired simultaneously from hidden positions throughout the mountain range. The combined energy beam was brighter than lightning and hotter than the surface of a star. It struck the Devastator directly in the center of its main sensor array. The alien ship shuddered as electromagnetic feedback cascaded through its control systems. Navigation computers crashed. Targeting systems went offline. The artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, throwing crew members around the bridge. Admiral Kreestan grabbed his command chair as sparks flew from control panels throughout the ship. "What is happening?" he shouted over the noise of failing electronics. "Sir, all navigation systems are down," his chief engineer reported. "We are flying blind in atmospheric conditions with zero visibility. Recommend immediate emergency landing." The Devastator lurched sideways as its autopilot systems tried to compensate for the navigation failure. Without computer guidance, the massive ship was like a drunk giant stumbling through a forest. "Emergency. Landing authorized," Kreestan ordered reluctantly. "Find the nearest flat terrain and set us down immediately." The alien cruiser crashed into the side of Mount Siorak with tremendous force. Trees snapped like twigs and tons of rock cascaded down the mountainside. The ship carved a deep gouge in the slope before finally coming to rest in a cloud of steam and debris. From his observation point, Kim Tae watched the crash with satisfaction. "Phase 5 complete," he announced to his team. "Prepare for boarding." Operations. The Korean soldiers had just accomplished something that most military experts would have considered impossible. Using captured alien technology and mountain. The crash of the alien capital ship shook the entire mountain range like an earthquake. Trees fell and rocks tumbled down steep slopes as the massive vessel carved a path of destruction through the forest. Steam rose from the wreckage as superheated metal met ice and snow. Major Kim Tae led his soldiers down the mountainside toward the crashed ship. Smoke poured from dozens of holes in the ship's hull, and emergency lights flickered through broken windows. The Devastator looked like a metal whale that had been thrown onto dry land. "Move carefully," Kim Tae warned his team. "There may be survivors inside and their weapons could still be functional. Our mission is to capture intelligence and prisoners, not to kill helpless enemies." This decision would prove more important than any weapon in changing the course of the war. The Korean soldiers approached the wreckage with extreme caution. They had spent months studying the layout of Galactic Federation capital ships using captured technical manuals. They knew where the bridge would be located and which sections were most likely to contain survivors. Sergeant Park Dal found the first breach in the ship's hull. Emergency lights cast strange shadows on twisted metal and sparking electronics. The air inside was filled with smoke and the sound of failing systems. As the rescue teams moved deeper into the ship, they began to find injured alien crew members. Many were trapped under debris or suffering from smoke inhalation. Some had serious injuries that required immediate medical attention. Medic Song Ha-yi was the first Korean to encounter Admiral Kreestan. The alien commander was pinned under a fallen beam, with what appeared to be several broken bones. Green blood seeped from cuts. On his tentacles and his breathing was labored. Most human soldiers would have left an enemy commander to die, or simply taken him prisoner. But Song Ha-ye had trained for 6 years to save lives, regardless of who needed help. "Hold still," Song Ha-ye told the alien admiral as she examined his injuries. "I am going to get you out of here, but you need to stay calm and let me work." Kreestan looked up at the human medic in amazement. "Why?" he asked weakly. "Why are you helping me after what we tried to do to your people?" Song Ha continued working to free him from the debris. "Because that is what soldiers do," she replied simply. "We fight when we must, but we are still human beings. Helping injured enemies is part of our honor code." The alien admiral had conquered 17 worlds during his military career. He had seen countless acts of brutality and cruelty from both his own forces and his enemies. But he had never encountered anything like this. As Song Ha worked to stabilize his injuries, other Korean soldiers were rescuing more alien crew members. They shared their food rations with hungry prisoners and provided warm blankets to creatures suffering from exposure to the cold mountain air. Lieutenant Kim Soo organized the evacuation of seriously wounded aliens to a field hospital that had been set up in a nearby cave. Korean medics worked alongside their patients without regard for species or previous hostilities. Captain Jang Woo supervised the collection of alien technology and intelligence data, but he also made sure that personal belongings were returned to prisoners. Family photographs, communication devices, and religious items were treated with respect. The surviving alien crew members watched these actions with growing amazement. Their own military doctrine taught that defeated enemies should be eliminated or enslaved. The concept of treating prisoners with dignity and compassion was completely foreign to their experience. Commander Vexstar received reports from the crash site through emergency communication channels. He could not believe what his officers were telling him. The humans were providing medical care to enemy wounded, sharing food and shelter, treating prisoners according to something they called the laws of war. This makes no sense, Vexter said to his staff officers. Why would they waste resources on defeated enemies? These humans show weakness that we can exploit. But Admiral Kreestan, who was now recovering in a Korean field hospital, sent a very different message to the fleet. Commander, he transmitted weakly, but clearly, cancel the bombardment immediately. These humans are not primitive savages. They are the most advanced warriors I have ever encountered. The alien admiral continued his report from his hospital bed, surrounded by human medics who were monitoring his recovery. They fight with incredible skill and courage. They use their environment as a weapon better than any species in the galaxy. But most importantly, they fight with honor. Kreestan described how Korean soldiers had risked their own lives to rescue enemies from the burning wreckage, how they had shared their limited supplies with prisoners, how they had treated alien wounded with the same care they gave to their own soldiers. These humans have something we have forgotten in our thousands of years of conquest, the admiral concluded. They understand that true strength comes not from superior technology, but from superior character. Within hours, the story of the Mountain Special Forces spread throughout the Galactic Federation. Tales of the humans who could disappear in snow, who could turn mountains into weapons, who could capture capital ships with salvaged equipment, spread from ship to ship. But what impressed the aliens most was not the Korean tactical brilliance or their adaptation of alien technology. It was their treatment of defeated enemies that challenged everything the Federation believed about warfare. Back on Earth, Major Kim Tae stood on the same ridge where he had first spotted the alien invasion fleet. The mountains were peaceful again, covered in fresh snow that sparkled under the winter sun. In the distance, he could see the crashed Devastator being studied by teams of human and alien engineers working together. Sir Sergeant Park Dal approached with a communication device. The Galactic Council is requesting permission to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. They want to discuss something they call a mutual defense treaty. Kim Tae smiled as he watched an eagle soar between the snow-covered peaks. His grandfather had fought in these same mountains against foreign invaders 70 years ago. The old man had always said that the strongest victory was one that turned enemies into allies. Tell them they are welcome to send ambassadors, Kim Tae replied. But warn them that our mountain winters are harsh. They will need proper equipment if they want to train with us. The Korean Special Forces had done something remarkable. They had not only defended their homeland against impossible odds, but had earned the respect of an entire galactic civilization. More importantly, they had shown that humanity's greatest weapon was not technology or tactics, but the unbreakable spirit that could turn any challenge into an opportunity. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to find primitive creatures who could be easily conquered. Instead, they discovered warriors who embodied the highest ideals of military service: courage in the face of overwhelming odds, ingenuity when confronted with superior technology, and mercy toward defeated enemies. As news of the Korean victory spread throughout the galaxy, the planned conquest of Earth was quietly abandoned. Instead, the Galactic Federation requested permission to establish a military exchange program. They wanted to learn from the humans who had taught them that true strength came from character, not from weapons. The mountains had witnessed another victory over foreign invaders. But this time, the victory had transformed enemies into friends and changed the destiny of two civilizations. The Korean Special Forces had proven that sometimes the greatest conquest is winning the respect of those who came to destroy you. In the years that followed, Earth would become known throughout the galaxy as the world that produced the finest warriors, not because of their technology, but because of their humanity. And in the frozen peaks of the Korean peninsula, young soldiers from a dozen different worlds would come to learn what it truly meant to be a warrior.